Wretched poor soul. Oh my goodness. I do not envy your position. This poor guy. Like, could you imagine what... Guys, I think he's enjoying this. Alright everyone, welcome back to By the Box, episode 9 this time. We're going over Primal Burst and then a Resonance of Contrast. So, Primal Burst, Gold Sphere, what do we got? What do we got for really good cards that may by themselves make this box worth going through? We don't, not in this one. Comparatively to some of the other main boxes that we've gone over recently, this one's kind of disappointing, but I have a lot of cards in the other categories. So in Silver Wall, I'm going to start with Snow, Unlight of the Dark World. Now, Snow, I just want to say, is one of the most poorly worded cards in the history of the game. Like, its effect is... So I will go over how it reads, and you guys let me know if you understood it, and then I'll explain it. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, if it was discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, add one Dark World card from your deck to your hand, then special summon that target, if any, in face-up defense position. So how it works is if it was discarded by a card effect, even if it was your own, then you get to add a Dark World card to your hand. And then if it was discarded and it was because of your opponent's card effect, you can still add a Dark World card to your hand, but then you also can special summon a monster from your opponent's graveyard. So yeah, it's confusing, but I'm sure with that cleared up, I mean, it shows how good of a card it is. It's a searcher for its archetype. It can be a monster reborn if discarded by your opponent, but it's less likely that'll happen. It's just a really good searcher. And so the reason this card is in Silver Wall is because it is a consistent and really great card within its archetype in Dark Worlds that are not the strongest thing in the world, but they are a very competent deck and they're capable of getting King of Games, stuff like that. You don't see them a whole lot because they're way too expensive. And this card is a big part of the reason why it's so expensive, because it is not obtainable in any other way, and it is a key part, and a debatably optimal part to Dark World decks. And it's sitting here in this old box that honestly doesn't have too many things that are worth going through in terms of staples or things that you could tech into other decks. I mean, if you're trying to build Dark Worlds, then there's really not a whole lot you're getting from this. But like I said, it sees play in Avenger from the Void Dark World decks at 3 copies very consistently, and this is very rare, but it does occasionally see play in Fire King decks at a copy or 2. So really good card in its archetype, but just an archetype that can't consistently perform at a high level, not very splashable or techable in other decks, and yeah, it's a good card. Next up in Silver Wall, we have Forbidden Dress. Forbidden Dress is a quick play spell card. Target one face-up monster on the field until the end of this turn. That target loses 600 attack, but cannot be destroyed or targeted by card effects. So this is definitely the best staple in the box, and that's really all there is to say about it. It is a staple. You can just tech it into a bunch of different decks. Now, the obvious thing that's wrong with this is it has been completely power crept by one of its subsidiaries, Forbidden Lance. So I've had some people before ask why Forbidden Dress isn't played over Forbidden Lance, and it's just because there is a distinct difference between cannot be targeted or destroyed and then just straight up immunity. Now, Forbidden Dress does have something going for it that Lance doesn't. Forbidden Dress does prevent the monster from being targeted or destroyed by monster effects, whereas Forbidden Lance only makes them immune to other spell and trap effects. However, for the intensive purposes of Duel Links, Forbidden Lance's effect is just way better. Forbidden Dress can't protect a monster from Floodgate Trap Hole or Drowning Mirror Force, things like that, whereas Forbidden Lance can just do it all completely. And not to mention, let's say a monster is equipped with a spell card already. If you used Forbidden Dress on it and then you wanted it to lose the benefits of that equip card, then it wouldn't work, but Forbidden Lance would. Again, it is a good card for sure, and it's like, if you don't have Forbidden Lance or Forbidden Chalice or Mystical Space Typhoon or any of these other staples and you happen to have a copy or 2 of this, then it really doesn't hurt as a staple to tech into any deck, basically. Monsters are never short in the market of wanting to be immune to targeting and destruction, so yes, it is a good card, and like Lance, it does have the caveat of losing attack points, but that also means that you could use this card a little defensively if you absolutely needed to. So it is good for sure, but the reason it's not in Gold Sphere and the reason I just can't really justify saying it's that good is because yes, it has been power crept, and by extension it really doesn't see a whole lot of play. And I wouldn't invest into this box and to go through it just to get this card when Forbidden Lance is just hanging around in other ways. So yeah, and another thing about this card is it is available in Selection Box Mini Volume 1, but you know, that thing's kinda not really a great alternative way to get it, but that's gonna be the funny thing, is that a lot of these cards actually are in Selection Box Mini 1, so it's debatable whether this box or that is worth going through. And then that's kind of it for Silverwall. It's really just those two. I kind of had a hard time picking and choosing which of these cards in Silverwall and Bronze Weapon where they should be, but I eventually made decisions on it. But I mean, they're so close to each other really. So with that being said, the first card in Bronze Weapon is going to be Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress. She has the effect to target a spell or trap card on the field, and then she changes her battle position to defense mode, and if she does, then you destroy that spell and trap. And then during the end phase, you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard if she's still on the field, which is a standard and consistent effect in the Lightsworn archetype. So Lila is a good card. It's just kinda slow. I mean, it's a walking mystical space typhoon, and that's really cool, but it can be disrupted very easily. But that being said, I mean, the card is just solid all the way around, and it does see play in a few different decks. It sees play in its own archetype of Lightsworns, however, it isn't the best card in those decks because it is a little too slow for their pace. Lightsworns are a very quick, rapid-fire, mill your deck, OTK type of deck. But it does also see play in Thunder Dragons from time to time, Thunder Dragons that are running more of a Lightsworn engine, but it's more of a Lightsworn core at that point, where they're running Raiden and Lumina and Solar Recharge, and occasionally they will run Lila, especially since Thunder Dragons don't usually have built-in spell and trap removal outside of Chaos Dragon. And that's another thing that can be said about it, is if you're missing some of the pieces of a Thunder Dragon deck, then it's a fine card to tech in. And it also sees occasional play in Labyrinth Builder Dino decks, which is a hit and miss rogue deck, but one that I personally love a lot, and I think it's fun, but it's also pretty expensive. So yeah, the card is it's just not too applicable to that many things. But the thing is like, if you pick it up in this box, there are ways to use it, and like honestly, in a lot of decks that don't mind milling cards to their graveyard, if you need something for spell and trap removal, then keep this card in mind. This card is also available in Selection Box Mini Volume 1. Again, I'll let you guys make heads or tails which is the better option. In my opinion, like what you're getting back, obviously it's going to be the Selection Box, but in terms of value for what you're getting back, if you really need Lila, I would recommend this box more. So continuing in Bronze Weapon, I have one of the boys, and that's Gaioplate, the Earth Giant. He can special summon himself by removing from play 2 rock monsters in your graveyard, but then during the standby phase, you need to remove from play a rock monster from your graveyard, or he sends himself to the graveyard. And then any monster that he battles with, he halves their attack and defense. So that effect is okay, and on 2800 attack, it's pretty nice, but the best thing about this card is just how easy it is to summon. Removing from play 2 rock monsters is no big deal, especially in the decks it's used in. Their ability to dump rock monsters in the graveyard like crazy, this card is almost always live. And then the remove from play a rock type monster, I mean, that cost is so slow, it just doesn't really matter, and there are rock decks that can benefit from that too. No, the card is good, it's fun. Like I said, the biggest thing about it is how easy it is to summon, and if anything, you could use it for maybe some rank 8 plays with Block Dragon, just because he can special summon himself so easily. And so yeah, that's kind of where it sees play, is occasional play in Block Dragon, and being the Block Dragon aficionado that I am, the Block Dragon borderline expert, I would say, I don't use this card, but when I'm feeling a little frisky, I do. And I'll be the first one to tell you that if you're missing a copy of Block Dragon, or you're missing a copy of like Tackle Crusader, then this card is definitely a great tech in that deck. But it also sees a lot of play in the Centrify Soldier of Stone decks. And then so the last thing that kind of sucks is this card is not available in any other way, so it's kind of more of, you know, you happen to pick it up going for Snow or going for Lila, and I don't recommend going through this box specifically to get this card. It has better alternatives, but you know, if you're trying to go after Snow, then it's a good thing to pick up. And then if you have the remnants of any kind of rock deck that interacts with the graveyard, then this card will fit in nicely. So continuing in Bronze Weapon, I have Volcanic Shell. Volcanic Shell is a rare in the box. It has the effect on a soft once per turn to pay 500 life points, and then it will add one other copy of itself from your deck to your hand, but it needs to be in the graveyard for this effect to resolve. This card has seen a ton of play alongside the Invoked engine. Alistair the Invoker, in my opinion, is the strongest normal summon in Duel Links by far, and one of the strongest cards, and probably should never came to the game. And I think Konami was fine with putting Alistair in the game because they didn't give us the more broken fusion monsters he can bring out, like Invoked Makaba. But the fact that they didn't have the foresight to see how problematic a card like Invoked Purgatrio would be in a 4,000 life point format is just doesn't really track with me. Invoked Purgatrio is like one of the absolute monsters in the battle phase. It can attack all your opponent's monsters. It gains 200 attack for every card your opponent controls. It inflicts piercing battle damage. I mean, it's insane. And that's why this card is in Bronze Weapon, because as of the latest nerfs to Invoked, then nothing else has really happened. And that being said, the Fire Reload Invoked Neos deck still sees play. Occasional rogue success. It's not great, but honestly, I feel like it can beat a lot of the rogue decks. It's just that a lot of people aren't playing it because it's kind of old and stale, and you know, part of it definitely is the power creep, but this card is still good, and what it does is just phenomenal. It's a +1 straight from the graveyard at the cost of 500 life points, and so I think this card is potentially future-proofed, as I think as more things come to the game, then this card can be used or cycled through in gimmicky ways. We'll have to see. The last card that is going to fit into my categories, it is the only common in the box, and it is the only card that is limited, and that's Shien's Dojo. Shien's Dojo has the effect that whenever a 6 samurai monster is normal summoned or special summoned, you place a Bushido counter on it. During your main phase, you can then send this card to the graveyard to special summon either a 6 samurai or a Shien effect monster from your deck whose level is equal to or less than the number of counters you have on it. To put it bluntly, this card is phenomenal and optimal in 6 samurai decks, and back in the day when 6 samurais were far and away the best deck in the game and this card was unrestricted alongside a Nishi, then yeah, it was kind of stupid. Special summoning monsters from the deck is extremely strong, and I say that a lot, and I think as to why, it's just like, think about it this way. Your cards start in the deck, and then the consistency of your deck, and the reason that word comes up so much and the reason that's important is because the combos and the plays that you're trying to make, you want to be able to do them consistently. So when a deck is able to facilitate that by searching out cards, drawing cards, or bringing cards out directly from the deck, it inherently makes it more consistent. And Shien's Dojo is a really good example of a powerful card that can do that, because you don't have to worry about drawing the 6 samurai effect monster that you need. You don't have to worry about it being in your opening hand, because if you see your Shien's Dojo in your opening hand, then you know you have a path to getting that monster on the field. And 6 samurais still see a fair and decent amount of play. Now, it's not as widespread as it used to be, and they're a rogue deck at best, but they can still compete. And every single time they are running 1 copy of this card, but if they could run more than that, they would. So the reason they're only running 1 copy as opposed to 2 is because 6 Samurai Anishi is also limited to 2, and he is also an integral part of 6 Samurai decks. You know, in 6 Sams, it's a phenomenal card, but I'm just gonna say it right now, this is not the way to go and get it. This card is also available in the Warriors Unite main box, which obviously we'll get to at some point, so I don't want to spoil it too much, but 6 Samurai Shien is in there, and as well as Kizan. 2 more integral parts of the deck, so if you want to build a 6 Samurai deck, that is definitely the better way to go get this card. And so real quick, honorable mentions, kind of, or more of just things worth talking about. So Gem Knights, almost the entirety of their archetype, not the entirety, but a ginormous chunk of their archetype is in this box. And only 3 of them are relatively hard to obtain. So there's Gem Knight Master Diamond, which is the only ultra rare in the archetype that's in this box. And then there's also Gem Knight Seraphinite, that is a super rare, and then Gem Knight Prismara, who is also a super rare. And they're all the extra deck cards, but everything else is a rare or a normal. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted to build Gem Knights, that's something you could do while looking for a snow or whatever you're after. So, and then continuing my theme, I forgot to do this last time, but going over the poster boy, Volcanic Doomfire. Volcanic Doomfire is the alleged boss monster of Volcanics. He has the effect that he can't be normal summoned or set. He can only be special summoned by sending a face-up Tri-Blaze Accelerator you control to the graveyard. And then during the battle phase, any of your opponent's monsters that are in attack position must attack this card, and when he destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, he destroys all monsters your opponent controls and inflicts 500 damage to them for each monster destroyed. So that effect is pretty good. It's a built-in battle mania. However, your opponent could just change their monsters to defense position, but then of course you could attack on your turn, and destroying one monster if they had a full board would be 1500 points of damage, which is a lot. And on 3000 attack, it's pretty great, and he can bring himself out. The problem is how he brings himself out. I mean, sending a specific continuous spell card from the field to the graveyard is a little too much. And this is kind of the thing about consistency again. So you would have to reliably believe that you can get Tri-Blaze Accelerator and Volcanic Doomfire in this setup at the same time to where it'll work out. So that's what makes this card inconsistent. And for a lot of cards, even if they're powerful, something like that'll just kill it. So I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world at all, but yeah, it's just inconsistent, and also it has no protection whatsoever. So there's nothing from stopping your opponent of destroying it, disrupting it, banishing it, whatever they can do. So whatever, you know, it's fine, I guess. All right, we are here with Resonance of Contrast, the mini box for this episode, and it's okay. It's okay. So in Gold Sphere, which will be the only Gold Sphere card that I talk about in this whole episode, we have Void Trap Hole. When your opponent special summons a monster or monsters with 2000 or more attack, you can negate the effect of it, or one of them if it was multiple monsters, and then destroy it if you do. So basically almost every single monster that's summoned from the extra deck, and that's really good. And this card is an applicable counter to the majority of decks. And by extension, it's a staple card that has seen a consistent and healthy amount of play probably ever since it came out, but even recently. In fact, this card has seen tech play in Harpies, Melodius, and Destiny Heroes recently. The card is just really good. It's just destroy a monster with 2000 or more attack points when it's special summoned. So it could be your opponent's boss monster, it could be one of their combo extenders from the extra deck, hell, it could be their combo starter that has 2000 or more attack. The card is just really, really good, and time it right, it can win you the game. And like a lot of other cards in this episode, it is available in Selection Box Mini Volume 1, but you know, again, the selection boxes, I feel like that's when Konami just has absolutely no shame in showing off their greed. So, you know, heads or tails on that, but great card. Next up in Silver Wall, we have Bujin Yamato. Bujin Yamato is a very strong card within its archetype. It has the effect that once per turn during your end phase, you can add a Bujin monster from your deck to your hand, and then you send one card from your hand to the graveyard. And then it has a caveat that you can only control one of him at a time, effectively making it a hard once per turn without it actually being a hard once per turn effect. And so going back to the consistency thing that I was talking about earlier, it's kind of the same deal here. That's why this card is so good. Especially because a lot of the Bujins have effects that they can activate from the hand, and this card can be consistently protected. And it's not too strong at all because it does have the caveat to send a card from your hand to the graveyard, but there are Bujin cards that have great graveyard effects too, so a lot of the time this card can just be straight advantage. It is debatable that if this card is the best card in the Bujin archetype, and in every single Bujin deck it sees play, and it sees play at 3 copies. And so what's kind of upsetting about this though is is how optimal this card is in its own deck, run it 3 copies, all that. It's only available in one other way, and that's selection box number 4, the one with Book of Moon. And so yeah, once again, it's just the selection box is like, what the hell. And then the other thing that sucks about this is it's kind of the only good Bujin card in this box. All the other good Bujin support came out later, and so that's kind of infuriating, because if you wanted to build a Bujin deck, then you have to go through multiple different boxes, and the fact that this is a mini box means you can only get 1 Bujin Yamato per box. This alone kind of soft locks people out of being able to build Bujin decks. It's kind of annoying. And the thing is Bujins are okay, and this card is phenomenal in them. He is kind of the centerpiece, so I feel the need to put him into Silver Wall, but it's just, as far as like, you know, the worth of going through this box, it's not really there with this card. Like, my main advice would actually just be, don't build Bujins. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's discouraging sometimes when I talk about some of these cards. Like, seriously, Konami, you haven't made these cards accessible in another way. And with that being said, I've been thinking about starting a petition to put on Konami to make a shit ton of the older boxes half off all of the time. It doesn't make sense why it's not that way anyway. Like, newer players, I mean, how overwhelmed you must be to be staring down almost 40 boxes now. I mean, it's just kind of bullshit that it's still 50 gems per pack, and that the half off gem sale is supposed to be this, you know, fucking solar eclipse we should be grateful to see. It's ridiculous. Like, seriously, all the old boxes need to be half off, and a lot of the cards need reprints, and I think Bujin Yamato is a great example as to why. Continuing in Silver Wall, we have the poster boy. I love when I can talk about the poster boy in its categories, and that's Red-Eyes Slash Dragon. Red-Eyes Slash Dragon is a very good fusion monster. His materials are Red-Eyes Black Dragon and any warrior monster. He has the effect that when a Red-Eyes monster, including himself, declares an attack, you can target a warrior type monster in your graveyard and equip it to him, and then he gains 200 attack. And then when a card or effect is activated that targets any card that you control, you can send one equipped card equipped to him to the graveyard to negate the activation and destroy that card. This is also a quick effect, so you can use it on your opponent's turn, and that effect right there is definitely the best part about this card. I mean, it's really good, because you are getting one of your opponent's answers out of the way, and it negates it and it destroys it. And then if he's destroyed by battle or card effect, which is going to be relatively hard to do with that first effect, and then also 2800 attack points, but even if, you can special summon as many monsters from your graveyard that were equipped to him. The card is kind of like a chain sequence of shit that's hard to get rid of. Like, you know, he's on the field, you try to get rid of him, he detaches the equipped monster to negate that, then you have to use another card to destroy him, and then he brings out something else that you then have to deal with. It's kind of funny. And as of right now, I'd make the argument that he is the best target for Red-Eyes Fusion, which is a phenomenal fusion card that can use materials from the deck. So talking about consistency one more time, a card like Red-Eyes Fusion is so good because you can just use the materials from your deck where all of your cards start. Compare it to polymerization, where you need to have the cards on your field or in your hand. I mean, just being able to use them from the deck is amazing, and this is definitely the best target for it. Kind of in the same vein as Brave Neos with Neos Fusion, which is definitely better, but Red-Eyes Fusion is still a really good card. So the thing is yep, this box ain't it. This box ain't it. This is in the Return of the Red-Eyes structure deck, which has a bunch of other Red-Eyes support, and it's the way better way to get this card. We're moving down to Bronze Weapon, and I have one card here, and that is Defense Draw. Defense Draw has the effect that during your opponent's turn at damage calculation, you can make the battle damage you take from a battle 0 and then draw a card. Very similar to Counter Gate in that way, and that's kind of the thing. This card has seen a lot of play in stall decks, mainly Lava Golem stall decks. So I doubt many people are a fan of this card, but it is also technically a decent staple that could realistically be teched into any deck if you are missing key parts to a deck you're trying to build. And that is something I talk about with a lot of the cards that are in Bronze Weapon, especially the ones that you could define as a staple. So yeah, I mean, like, if you pick the card up, you could put it in decks and it would do something. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. And yeah, it's pretty great in a stall deck, but you know, if you want to be that guy, then, you know, go ahead and be that guy. So then I have just really two cards worth talking about. So Photon Lead has seen occasional play in a few different decks. It has the effect to special summon a level for a lower light monster from your hand. And so it's just good in decks that have light monsters and want to swarm or go into extra deck plays more. It did see play in Star Seraph before they got nuked, for example. So it doesn't really, I don't think it's good enough to enter any of the categories, and I think it's slowly getting power crept and its power levels dwindling, but it is a card that can make certain decks better, so I felt the need to talk about it just to say, hey, you know, this thing exists. It's an option for light decks. And then lastly, I'll talk about Snipe Hunter. So you can discard a card to target a card on the field, you roll a 6-sided die, and destroy it unless you roll a 1 or a 6. So that is a 66.6% chance of destroying a card. Like, you know, it's faster than Raigeki Break, and it has the same effect as Raigeki Break, and Raigeki Break has seen a lot of play, still sees a good amount of a play. It's considered a very good card. But, you know, the problem with a Snipe Hunter is that ambiguity, that vagueness, that if you were to discard a card, which can be a huge cost, and then you roll a 1 or a 6, then it sucks. So the card has been okay in decks that have skills that can manipulate luck. Yeah, I mean, it's a good card for sure. It does something good. It's just that 33.3% chance that just keeps this card from being, you know, worth running in anything. So that's kind of it for Resonance of Contrast. Yeah, it's not super great, to be honest. So again, it's like my main advice is don't build Bujins, because it sucks. Like, Yamato needs a reprint, Void Trap Hole needs a better reprint, and Red-Eyes Slash Dragon thankfully does have a really good reprint. So this is another one of those, like, unless you are desperately trying to build a Bujin deck, like you really want it, like Void Trap Hole has better alternatives, and yeah, there's just there's nothing here. And again, that's par for the course with a lot of these mini boxes. It's just the way it is. But, you know, this is the series that I'm doing, and I will talk about the historical nature of certain cards from time to time, but I mainly want to talk about them as they apply to the current meta. So that's going to do it for By the Box episode 9. Next time, we will be going over Abyss Encounters and Rampage of the Forest. Alright everyone, welcome to a very, very special public service announcement. So on my Discord, I'm going to be hosting a tournament soon, and yeah, if anyone wants to sign up for a tournament for this channel, just join the Discord and I'll be putting a sign up sheet soon. It's completely free to enter, and anyone can enter, no restrictions. Outside of the standard limited rules in Duel Links, will be side deck format. You don't have to use a side deck if you don't want. As well, Treacherous Trap Hole is banned. That's the only limitation. Treacherous Trap Hole is banned. You will be DQ'd if you're caught using Treacherous Trap Hole. I have the power. No. If Konami won't do it, I will. No, you know, so whatever. Even though it's free to enter, we will have a prize. So thanks to one of my phenomenal Discord members, PotofGreedFan, seriously, man, you are amazing. We will have a prize, which will be a new Duel Links account that has a almost completely built Dynamis deck in it. So if that's something that interests you, then yeah, join the tournament, try to get that first place. Even if you win and you don't want the other profile with the Dynamis deck, then that's understandable, and we can just save it as a prize for a different one. But I was thinking about some other alternative prizes that we can do. Again, I don't want it to be a pooled tournament. I don't want anyone spending money on, you know, just a casual Discord tournament for fun. So another thing that I was thinking, where is this shit? Where's the shit? I just had this shit. See, it's on my fucking bed. Okay, I got it. So, I have these gold series, boom, Chris the Crack of Dawn. So I was thinking as a tournament prize, maybe, I think it's kind of cute, you know, channel mascot, boom, gold series. I was thinking I could get one of those silver Sharpies and sign the back of the sleeve or something. And then, you know, if I ever get up to Yami Blood standards, it could be worth something. So I don't know. I'm kind of short on ideas sometimes about specific things, and that includes a reward for this tournament. So if you guys have any ideas on that or any requests or preferences, then just let me know. But this should be fun. It'll go down soon. I'll put a sign up sheet in the Discord, so just watch out for that. And yeah, fuck Treacherous